My husband won't even let me touch him after my betrayal. This reflection on the aftermath of infidelity is my attempt to be honest and acknowledge the consequences of my actions. If I were in his position, I wouldn't want to be touched either. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Amy, and I'm here to share my story as a warning about the chaos infidelity brings. I don't see myself as a victim here. The real victims are my husband, my children, and even my parents, who have been burdened by the weight of my choices. For that, I am deeply sorry. 19 months ago, I was caught in a betrayal that shattered my life and the lives of the people I love. Before that, my life seemed perfect. I'm a 32-year-old woman married to Jim, my wonderful 39-year-old husband. Together, we have two amazing boys, ages 9 and 11. From the outside, it looked like we had it all. But beneath the surface, I made a decision that would haunt me forever. To give you some context, my affair began over 2 years ago but was only discovered 19 months ago. It lasted nearly 5 months, during which I was physically involved with another man, Steve, a married neighbor. I'll be honest, our physical encounters were limited to only 4 times, though I know that may sound unbelievable. It's the truth. You might wonder what led to this. Were there issues in my marriage? Did I no longer love Jim? The answer is a firm no to both. I was completely happy and fulfilled in my marriage. Jim was everything I had ever dreamed of. I loved him and our children more than anything in the world. The attraction to Steve was born out of something deeper, almost primal, an allure rooted in the feeling of a first love. I thought that part of me was buried, but when Steve entered my life, it resurfaced. Let me explain. In high school, I dated a few boys, but nothing serious came of those relationships. Then at 18, I met Charles, a friend's cousin, at a barbecue. From the moment I saw him, I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. We exchanged numbers, and our connection grew quickly. Our first kiss was magical, and it wasn't long before I lost my virginity to him. Despite our passion, we soon realized we had little in common. After 11 months, I broke things off. A year later, I met Jim. While there weren't immediate sparks, over time, I developed a love for him deeper than anything I had ever experienced before. Jim was everything I wanted: stable, kind, dependable. I knew he was the one, and we married a year later. For 15 joyful years, our marriage flourished, until my infidelity shattered it. As I mentioned, my affair lasted almost 5 months. It wasn't planned, and it certainly wasn't worth the price I paid. Steve and his family moved into our neighborhood 3 years ago. From the moment I met him, I felt an inexplicable connection, a sense of familiarity I couldn't shake. Steve was 37, handsome and confident, while his wife, Laura, was warm and friendly. Their children often played with ours, and our families became close. The affair began innocently enough. We'd chat during neighborhood gatherings or school events, but over time, our conversations became longer and more personal. One day, after running into him at a grocery store, we grabbed coffee. That coffee turned into lunch, and soon we were texting late into the night. I knew it was wrong, but I convinced myself it was harmless. The turning point came at a summer barbecue at our house. Jim was busy grilling while the kids played in the yard. Steve and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, and the tension between us was palpable. When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. That kiss marked the beginning of the end. Over the next few months, we met in secret 4 times, each time convincing myself it would be the last. With every encounter, I hated myself more. The guilt became unbearable, but I lacked the courage to confess. I convinced myself no one would find out, but secrets always have a way of surfacing. One evening, Jim found a text from Steve on my phone. Though the message wasn't explicit, it raised enough suspicion for him to confront me. I confessed everything. The look on Jim's face was something I will never forget, a mixture of pain, betrayal, and disbelief. In that moment, I understood the magnitude of what I had done. I begged for forgiveness, but deep down, I knew I didn't deserve it. That night, Jim moved into the guest room, and he hasn't returned to our bedroom since. Rebuilding trust has been an uphill battle. Jim agreed to counseling, but it's been slow and painful. He's set strict boundaries, including no physical contact, and I understand his need for space. However, every day is a reminder of how much I've hurt him. Our boys don't know the full extent of what happened, but they can sense the tension. I've tried to shield them from the fallout, but I know they've been affected. Looking back, I can't believe I risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion. I let down the man who gave me everything and the children who depend on me. I've learned the hard way that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. I share my story not for sympathy, but as a cautionary tale. Infidelity isn't glamorous or exciting, it's destructive. It leaves behind a trail of broken hearts and shattered dreams. To anyone reading this, I hope my story reminds you to cherish what you have. Temptation is everywhere, but the consequences aren't worth it. If you're struggling in your marriage, seek help, communicate, and fight for your relationship. Because once it's gone, you'll realize just how much you've lost. It's been a year since the affair came to light, and life hasn't been the same. Jim and I still live under the same roof, but the distance between us is undeniable. The easy camaraderie we once shared has been replaced by strained silences and carefully chosen words. It feels like we're strangers trying to navigate a life we no longer recognize. Counseling has helped, offering tools to communicate better and address the root causes of our issues. But there are days when it feels like we're just going through the motions. Jim is a man of his word. He committed to trying, and he's doing just that. But I can see the pain in his eyes, the doubt that lingers despite my efforts to prove I'm trustworthy. One of the hardest parts has been confronting my own demons. Why did I risk everything for something so fleeting? What was I searching for that I couldn't find in my marriage? These are questions I've wrestled with endlessly. I've come to realize that the affair wasn't about Steve. It was about me, my insecurities, my need for validation, my failure to communicate my unhappiness. The truth is, Jim and I had grown apart long before the affair. Life had gotten in the way, work, kids, responsibilities. We stopped prioritizing each other, and the spark that once defined our relationship had dimmed. But instead of addressing the problem head-on, I chose the coward's way out. I sought solace in the attention of another man, thinking it would fill the void. It didn't. If anything, it only deepened it. I've worked hard to rebuild myself, to become a better person, not just for Jim, but for myself. I've taken up journaling, joined a support group, and focused on being more present for my children. I've learned to sit with my guilt and shame instead of running from it. It's not easy, and there are days when the weight of my mistakes feels unbearable. But I owe it to Jim, to my kids, and to myself to keep trying. As for Jim, I don't know what the future holds. There are moments of connection, fleeting but real, that give me hope. A shared laugh over a childhood memory, a kind gesture, a glimpse of the man I once fell in love with. But there are also moments when it feels like we're standing at the edge, unsure of what comes next.